Yeah, while you're away, I looked that up, and another platform is the way to go to get us into OBS, and then we can do everything we want to do. So just give me some time to get that worked out and figured out.
Cool. Cool.
Awesome. Happy Sunday.
Yeah.
What's going on? My camera's being so weird. Everything's weird. I was complaining about not being able to use this camera, and now I'm like pissed off at it.
I love this camera. Stupid fucking camera. God.
Stupid,
Ah.
stupid camera making me look stupid.
I'm sorry, camera. I'm sorry. I do love you. I do love you. Just sometimes. Urgh.
One of these days, one of these days, Logitech.
To the moon, camera.
Yeah, yeah. Because the hit comedy show of the 50s was centered around domestic violence.
Yeah. Uh, oh, the 50s. Freaking boomers. Oh, what a way to start. What a way to start.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into it
All
'cause
right.
we got a lot of clouds to yell out today.
Yeah. Welcome to Comics in the Making. My name is Ryan Holgerson. I'm the creator of Slackmatic, and I'm joined, as always, by Levi Erickson, the creator of The Big. Levi, how you doing?
I'm on a mission. I am on a mission to make something happen, but you'll find out in episodes to come.
Yeah, yeah. We were working on it for like an hour and 15 minutes before we started doing this. And
Here we are.
yeah, here we are. You know what though, Levi, I got to give it to you. We haven't released that episode yet. I still got to do the thumbnail, but you did not curse nearly like you. I would have expected so much more cursing based on the last episode when you were getting frustrated with technology. So
Yeah, yeah.
I got to give it
Good
to
thing. That is a good thing.
you.
I'm going to try to minimize the cursing. I'm going to try to minimize the pet words. Uh, I became acutely aware of my use of pet words.
Oh, it's
Um,
so hard.
as I was prepping audio for our audio only version of the podcast, which is up, and I'm glad to announce that you can find Comics in the Making now on Spotify and wherever else they push it out from, and also Google, the Google one, the Google one. What's the Google one? Google.
No idea.
So we're there. We're on both of those, and we'll be on you know, all the other platforms. It's kind of the kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's going to make me look dumber than I already do, but
It's kind of like an aggregator,
right,
something
right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're into the audio only type of podcast rather than video, I mean, unfortunately, you don't get to see our faces, but um, we are on the audio streaming platforms today as we speak.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine, I guess Spotify is probably one of the biggest podcast systems now. I I honestly I listen to all my podcasts on uh what do they call it now? I guess it's just Apple Podcasts or something. I think they have
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a name they want it to be called. I don't remember what it is. Um but I'm always hearing about people, getting on Spotify, and Spotify is like integrated into Patreon now. Which, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have a Comics in the Making Patreon, but I know uh I've heard a lot of podcasters talking about how it's really nice because you can integrate your Patreon only episodes right into Spotify if you have a subscription, and it makes it a lot easier than just like, having to change apps and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
um, probably a good move for Spotify, uh, you know, making that partnership, however it worked, with Patreon.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
yeah.
and that
So,
and that and that's good. People can say and have their reservations and feelings about some of these different platforms and the way they operate. For our purposes at the moment, we're just trying to reach the audience and build and grow the channel. So those are the steps we're taking at the moment, and we're glad that that's one of the goals that I had for the new year was to, kind of increase that media footprint for the show and just, find people who may not find us where we already were.
Oh yeah. I think it's funny because like probably as musicians, we are not fans of Spotify. As podcasters, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to, kind of get started this new year, and so that's a W. Check that box for now.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's something we've kind of wanted to do since the beginning of this. Was take the audio and put it out there to get us into another uh, field of potential listeners and viewers and stuff like that. So that's great.
Yeah, and
So,
and that goes hand in hand. Sorry, I got a new chair and it has arm thingies, and so I keep
ooh,
bashing my
fancy.
table. So if you see that,
Yeah,
I keep hitting it.
I
I
do.
got to figure that out. So I don't do that.
Yeah.
In
Well, and for the podcast listeners, it won't matter.
they'll hear that.
Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
that must have transmitted through my mic. Uh,
Yeah. No, I think it was all right.
but
Yeah. No, the
speaking
podcast listeners will be like, big deal. We don't care.
but
I don't care.
speaking of the visual component of the show, one of the things that we spent probably more time this morning than we should have was trying to get screen share going on and some top down stuff going so we can be a little bit more visual with some of the comics that we're referencing, and we can put a graphic of the comics, but I think there is value to just kind of looking at it together in real time, and between you and I and the viewers out there, I think that's a lot more fun than just boom, here's a graphic on the screen for you. Not to mention that would give us the capability of doing some live draw stuff, whether it be on, pens on paper or also using our tablets and some of our technology that we have, uh, and the things that we're using to create our comics anyway. So that's what we're working on, and that's what we want to bring into the show as we progress in 2024.
Yeah. And I mean, and the show's called Comics in the Making. So, if we can actually show video of us making comics, that'd be really great. I know I'm planning on doing some, uh, uh, video of me inking and, I'm going to be messing around with that some this week. I just finished writing my next story for this week a day or so ago. I'm actually lettering it now, and then I'll be penciling it. I don't really want to like show that part because it's very like brain power intensive, and I can't be bothered
Yeah,
to have to like respond to the few people that might jump in the chat. But inking is very meditative, so I can pretty much do whatever then. So I'm going to be playing around with some of that. I might just start off doing some time lapses, um maybe some I might try doing some lives first, like on Instagram or something like that. So if you want to like follow me there, um and then we might, see if we can integrate some of that into like a YouTube live, and I might be doing that on the Comics in the Making videos. So pay attention to my socials. I'll be posting on there when I do that sort of shit. uh but it's really just me trying, you know doing this experiment where I'm trying to get a story done every week. I'm spending 3 to 4 days a week inking and getting this stuff done, uh and where I'm releasing a just one post with the whole 10-page story or whatever it is. This will give me some more content to put out there leading up to it and afterwards and stuff like that. So
yeah,
just another piece of which this might lead right into what we were going to talk about. the landscape that we're in right now, when it's, getting our comics out and stuff like that, and how kind of frustrating it is, um to have to put on so many different hats now as a, I hate to say it, content creator. um we can't just uh we can't just draw the comic and put it out anymore. uh
Yeah,
Now it's okay, well, how do I do this, and put it on TikTok? How do I put it on Reels and
right.
shit like that?
Yeah, if we went back 30 years and if we were independent, create our own comic book guys that we are now 30 years ago, you would still have to wear all the same hats. You would still have to wear the writing. You would have to wear the artistic, the editorial, the publishing, marketing, all the hats. But I feel like in those days you had to follow a much more rigid path of creation and distribution. And that's kind of where the gatekeeping was. If you're trying to print a comic, other than going to Kinko's, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or if you were lucky enough to work in a print shop and do some stuff after hours, nothing wrong with that either. But just to be in the sphere of comic book creation, you had to follow, I feel, that's you had to jump in that torrential river rushing down and get your stuff out there using virtually the same channels as the majors.
Well, kinda, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing, I mean, I can kind of speak to that, because I
Yeah.
mean, I was putting comics out almost 30 years ago. And probably closer to 20. I mean, shit, yeah, no, I mean, it was pretty close to 30. um, but back in the day, it was, so the easiest way was, there were these like zines that were like kind of part review zines, part distro zines. Some of the people that would do them would have like little distribution operations and stuff like that. Um, and so what you would do is you would send your comic into these places, and they would review it, and they'd put your ordering information in there. And then in the case of some of the people that actually ran little distros, they might say, hey, send me 5 copies or whatever. I mean, I remember a few times, I would get these letters in the mail, Levi, and they would have like a note from the distro with like $2 or $3 like wrapped up in the letter. Like, here you go. Here's your cut. And but it, I, I don't know if that was better.
No,
Uh
yeah.
but it was kind of, at that point it was exciting, because dude, I'm serious. I would lose count of the amount of times I would get letters from like prison and shit like that. Um, because these guys would, in prison, they would subscribe to some of these to get different stuff sent to them and stuff.
Mhm.
And so there were times where I was like sending comics to prisons and shit like that. Um, it was a different time. And then of course, I think comic conventions uh really played a bigger part then. I think back then people were going to comic conventions, in part, not all of them, but there were people that would go to conventions to find the new artists or something different that they had never seen before.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's, I don't want to say it's completely going away, but it's definitely on a smaller scale now, than it was before. Because now when people want to find something new, they go to the internet, and that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. That's what I do.
You go to the
Uh,
internet, but the waters are so deep. I mean, maybe the waters aren't raging like they were in that sort of river that I metaphorized. Is it metaphorized?
Metaphor.
Metaphorically referred to. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm moving past it.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so the waters maybe still, not rushing like they were, but they're deep. The internet
Yeah.
waters are deep. And that's where it comes into, fast forward to present day, we are making our comics, and I've said it before, obviously the most important part of creating your own comics is your live stream and your internet presence and your shorts and the videos that you're making to raise your profile. It's my big joke. I'm a comic book creator, so naturally I spend a lot of time editing video, you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's
no.
part of
Yeah,
part of the landscape.
and that's I think that's what's so frustrating now is now we have this, in the early parts of the internet, so like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, we didn't have social media. So getting it out there was it was almost like a digital version of that system that I used before, but instead of sending uh comics to like a zine review place, we might, actually contact other webcomics creators and maybe do like comic shares or something like that, or link sharing. There were all these like web groups where you could, join, and hopefully someone would click on your link and go to your website. And um, you know, it wasn't perfect. But then
Yeah.
when social media came, especially like before the algorithms really took over, then it was like, holy shit. And I think a lot of cartoonists, and I mean just content creators in general, kind of like abandoned their websites. I mean, I did. Um and because it was like, well, I can just publish on Tumblr, or I can just publish on Instagram, or I just, like what's even the point, because people don't go to websites anymore.
Yeah.
Now, where you talk about it being so deep, it really is like, now it's like you're screaming into the void trying to get someone to pay attention, and there's just so much stuff out there. And it's become a societal issue, because the attention span has got shorter and shorter and shorter. And all you have to do to see examples of that is go watch a movie from the 80s. Uh, you know, and realize, like, when I show my daughter like an old movie and it's kind of a slow burn or something like that, you probably don't even have to go that. You probably go back to the 90s. Uh, she's just like, if it doesn't catch her in the first 15 or 30 minutes, she's like looking at her phone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of storytelling and movies and stuff like that from just 20 years ago was this made for a slower attention span of, and that's the thing. There weren't like a million things grabbing your attention, because in the 90s, we didn't have computers in our hand that had access to everything. So we're in a movie theater and we are locked in at that
Yeah.
movie. You know, I don't know how many times you've gone to the movies recently, but like I went back in Thanksgiving, uh, and there were still, you'd see little screens popping up, like we were in the back of the theater, and you'd still see people like picking up their screens and like looking
Oh yeah.
at
Opening
whatever
credits. You
images.
got to get it for the gram.
Yeah, right. So uh so it's just so it's funny, like we've reached a point where the potential to get the audience is literally infinite, and the ability to get that audience is near impossible.
Yeah, yeah, and that's there's no better way to say it than how you just put it just now. And I think if when I reflect on when social media and the internet was the most useful to me, or I got more enjoyment pound for pound
Yeah.
out of it, it was kind of right before the algorithm and I suppose that really got shaped in the way that we understand it today, right as monetization across platforms was starting to be, because you remember YouTube before uh monetization was a huge factor, right? You
Yeah.
could find all kinds of fun stuff, all kinds of
Yeah.
fun stuff. And it seemed like who the type of people that were interested in being a creator was a different kind of person. Now it's everybody. I think some of the most popular YouTube channels are just these cute little couples, and they hire a pro video crew and they film an intro about their cute little couple life. And they don't do anything except for, oh, we're gonna go to Target. Here we are going to Target because, whatever. And those channels and those videos get so many views,
Yeah.
well beyond something that you and I, or maybe some of our viewers would perceive as being interesting. I mean, I like human interest stories and just kind of like day in the life stuff, but I mean, it's the same video with the same couple. They just inhabit different bodies in different places, but they're
Yeah.
all making the same thing. But I guess it's the reason why they're so popular is the same reason that some of the crappiest music gets popular, because it's not speaking to the people who are looking for something specific. It's speaking to just average kind of people out there. And a lot of
Right.
people, they might hit our video and go, "Oh, these guys are talking about comic books. That's not for me." But here's a cutesy couple going to Target and showing you, how cutesy they are with each other. I mean, I could see how that could reach the mass population, at least, in the US, as something interesting, because people go to, if they see a piece of themselves in something,
Yeah.
you're drawn to it,
And I think that's what it is. It's the appearance of, oh, I go to Target too.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's all well and good, I'm I said, I'm trying to get them out of there.
it's so hard.
But it's but even if you want to take a specific subject and comics, looking for shows about comics on the internet is like walking into the comic book store with nothing in mind. And you're just so overwhelmed by so many different shows. And I get frustrated because I want to see something about comics, and the first things that are filling the feed are these collector
Oh,
videos. Have you seen those things?
yeah.
Yeah, just people, they may as well be talking about stocks, and they make it that interesting.
Dude, when I see videos on what is it? Is it CG CGC? No, not
Oh yeah,
CDC. What is it?
yeah,
CG
CGC.
CGC. Okay.
Yeah.
Not the Center for Disease Control.
No.
When I see any sort of CGC in the title or on the thumbnail, there's no way I'm clicking on that.
Yeah.
Unless it's one of the cartoonist kayfabe, where they cut that shit out.
Yeah, the
And
freedom ones.
yeah, um, I just, God damn it, Levi, I said it. So, but that, for me as a creator, I think that, and that's why cartoonist kayfabe is so popular, especially among cartoonists. But obviously, they have 100 some thousand subscribers. There's not that many makers out. Well, I mean, there might be, but I doubt all of those 100,000 people are makers. But they ask the questions that, a cartoonist wants to hear, and they know the questions based on what they do. uh and I think that's why it's so appealing uh to people, because of that, because they ask the different questions. I'll give an example, and I'm not going to name the channel or anything like that. Honestly, I don't even remember. But I so just last week I saw, I'm scrolling through YouTube trying to find something, and it says Mike Mignola interview. and it was a actual like the channel was for art sales, so like original art sales.
Hmm.
But they had sent a guy to interview Mignola at a I'm not even gonna say because I don't because I'm gonna badmouth him, so I don't know why, but at a comic convention. Uh and in the interview, or like preceding the interview, they're kind of going through some Mignola art and stuff like that, which I was excited to see. I'm a big Mike Mignola fan.
Mhm.
And they go, we're gonna play this, 20-minute clip of an interview, and boy, I found out some stuff that I didn't know. And so I'm like, oh, like, all right, like I'm looking forward to this interview. And I've seen a bunch of interviews with Mignola. Levi, I turned it off halfway through the fucking interview because I was so pissed off by the just ignorant questions that this guy was asking him.
Like any
Like,
other way.
I like if you're gonna to me, if you're gonna interview somebody, you and they joke about it even on like big interview things like TV shows and stuff where like an author's being interviewed and they're kind of shocked when the interviewer has actually read their book or whatever, because it's so infrequent, because in their defense, they've got, they're interviewing 5 people a week or whatever. uh but he's asking him questions about, first of all, he said, well, you're probably uh the most successful indie comics creator out there. And immediately I go, uh, Ninja Turtles. And what do you think the first thing out of Mike Mignola's mouth was? I think Eastman and Laird are doing pretty good. That's what he
Yeah.
fucking, and it's that kind of like, that shit just pisses me off when you're not, and I'm not saying you've got to be an expert when you're interviewing and stuff like that, but it went from there to like, you're the most successful indie creator, which, obviously he's in the top probably three,
Yeah.
but Ninja Turtles, it's number one. No one's beaten Ninja Turtles.
Right.
Um, and then he's talking about like his move to Dark Horse, and you know, Mike Mignola's like, well, we went and we started the Legends imprint, with him and Frank Miller and John Byrne and stuff like that. And the guy's like, really? Oh, I did not know that. And I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. Just turn the microphone off and stop. Get out. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too picky.
No, no, 100%. If you're interviewing somebody, you've got to do your research. And if it's someone that you know that you can turn the camera on and you can say something to the effect of, oh, I don't know. Okay, Mr. McFarland, the camera's rolling, go. Then you can sit back for 2 hours and they can just drive the whole damn thing. But
Yeah.
that's a rarity. And you've got to be prepared and you've got to be able to understand what questions have been asked before and what the interviewee has addressed before, and work through those topics. You don't have to be, like you say, a professional interviewer, but do the research. Something big in that person's accomplishments list should not come as a surprise during the thing.
Yeah.
And if it does, you should find that out beforehand, and that's where you can say, hey, you know, um, Ryan, I learned that you released this book 5 years ago, and it yada yada yada. You see where I'm going with that?
Right.
Um, so that's that's just that's either a complete lack of skill, which I'm not going to be too harsh on at this point, but it also just shows laziness.
Well, and so to me, getting back to your, like your collection videos and stuff like that, to me, that's that subgroup of comics creators, or not creators,
Yeah,
comics readers. And I barely call them readers because they're just collectors that are just Yeah, I mean, they're just in it for the collecting,
Hmm.
and there's no other like it just doesn't seem like there's anything else there. It's
Right.
just the collecting. Like what is this going to be worth? Or it was the same shit that put me off in the 90s.
Yes. Yes. It is it fair to say it's kind of happening again? Is that fair from an industry standpoint or from a fan standpoint? Both.
Well,
Is it fair to
I
say
mean,
that?
maybe. I mean, I think it's so different. I think the 90s, I mean, it was a bubble.
Yeah.
We know it was a bubble. And it was a bubble because of these collectors. And it's funny because I'm kind of split because part of me is like, well, it was because of those collectors and because of those numbers that probably made it easier for me to access some of it,
No. Yeah.
because it was being printed in such big numbers. But they were superficial. I mean, I remember my mom like was like making us pretty much like go by, and we were never DC guys, but making us go by like Death of Superman and the those, you remember the 4 series that they launched afterwards where like they were all die cut covers with the
Yeah.
Superman logo, but they were all different. And I had zero fucking interest in this stuff. Like I could have cared less about the death of Superman. I already knew it. How I
Mhm.
was like 12, 13. I knew he'd come back.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, give me a fucking break. And but we went and got it because my mom's like, you know what? This is gonna be worth something someday. And even in my 12-year-old brain, I'm like, they're printing a million, like 9 million of them. Like what how like nothing's worth anything when there's 9 million of them.
No. Yeah. And I had a conversation. We have like a shop galleria here in town, and there's a really awesome record store, comics, toys, vintage stuff called Hardy Boys Records and Comics. And so I like to go. I look at the records, but he just keeps the inventory fresh of all these back issues. And I tell you, if you want to put together a late 80s, 90s run on almost anything, you can do it real on the cheap with the pricing he's got.
Uh-huh.
Well, anyways, you take what you want, you bring it downstairs to the cash register, they ring you up. So I was ringing up some comics, and most of the shop is, um, like home decoration and little things like that,
Yeah.
and all these little unique little booths that have their things.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm getting my comics, and then there's this lady. She's kind of like hanging out, and she's about probably my age, somewhere. And she looks at me and she goes, "You remember when Superman died?" It's like, "Oh yeah, yeah. How could I forget that event?" She said, "Well, I got it. I got one of those comics. Even back then, it's still sealed up and everything." I said, "That's really cool. That's really cool." And then she goes, "I wonder how much it's worth now." And I hate having to be the one to do this, but I'm going to do it every time. I say honestly, they made so many of them, not much. If it's the bag version and it's sealed with shipping, if you sold it on eBay, you might get 15.
Yeah.
But we're talking they can still be found in the dollar bin. So
Yeah.
$1 to $5, 15 if you're real lucky. And she's like, oh. So yeah, they just made so many of them. It was a big event. And she goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." I said, "But yeah, hang on to it. Hang on to it. Give it another 30 years." You know. And it'll be worth 60,000 Bitcoin or whatever,
Yeah.
which means less than $1.
Yeah. But so I know I so like yeah, so we got into that. I know you said, is it kind of like that now? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think there is another collector's market kind of coming in. And I think YouTube and stuff like that does have something to do with that.
Mm,
I mean, I think part of the problem is I don't have my thumb on the pulse of that stuff anymore
right.
because I could give two fucks. And so I'm just not sure. But what I will say is they're not it's not the same because they're not getting that young audience anymore.
And see that, and that's key because the parts of the industry that are, I think, being emphasized by external forces like YouTube channels and things are the collecting aspect of it, are the graded sealed uh comics that we're talking about. All these, there's all these channels about. My guess there's probably more channels about that kind of collecting than there are about creating comics or collecting comics for the love. I have not seen an episode of someone's channel saying, "You've heard of the Inferno storyline. I'm going to break it down for you, and these are the comics if you want to collect that storyline that you should go find." No one's doing that. That's from a
I mean, I think there's a few. I
of,
think there's a few. I think, oh, what's her name? I think Comic Girl 19, Danica, she's been on Cartoonist Kayfabe. She does some stuff like that.
though that's cool.
They're out there, but they're rare. But they're
Right.
rare.
I haven't run into them.
Yeah.
And that's not, by no means do I know what all the shows out there are, but I would watch that. I would watch people going through storylines, timelines, just the fun collect. I mean, even if there was a channel of just fun little variants, printing mishaps that you can find out there, collecting from the love of comics aspect rather than some kind of, you know, monetary stock market value, kind of aspect. I'm just
If and so we already see the boom in manga and stuff like that now, and there's plenty of manga channels out there on YouTube. I'm willing to bet if YouTube is still a thing or social media and these videos and stuff are still a thing, I'd be willing to bet in 10 years we're going to start seeing the equivalent maybe of some of that collector's market going to there because the kids and we're already seeing that a little bit. I don't know if there's a huge collector's market because they're so popular. There's a ton of them. But I wonder if we start seeing more of that aspect. And I mean, I don't even know if it's 10 years. Uh,
Yeah,
but
it's so far
but
in the
if,
flux.
I mean, if you already look at webtoons and you go to the people that are creating on webtoons, I mean, everything looks like manga or you know what, someone's idea of what manga is.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, to me, it's just a further nail in the coffin for the big two, Marvel and DC, and what they've failed to capture.
Yep.
Uh, it's all gone to manga. I mean, and I know I talk about manga a lot. The reason I talk about manga and the reason I buy manga is because I can buy manga. I can't, I like comics. I love reading all sorts of different forms of comics. I love French comics. I love Japanese comics. I've read some Korean comics, but I can't find good American comics easily. But I can go to fucking Walmart and buy manga.
Right.
So yeah. So that's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty it's pretty frustrating and maybe a little saddening that in many aspects of the industry that we used to love just kind of don't exist the way we remember them. And the future, it's don't know exactly what direction we're moving in, but we're moving in a direction that hopefully will take us somewhere that, even though it'll be different than what we're used to, that doesn't matter because it's taking us someplace we want to be.
Sounds good. All right, we got to go.
Yeah, we got to get out of here.
Yeah,
Spend
just
more
do the
time
damn
trying to.
thing.
Yeah. We
Go
just
follow us on Spotify.
do it. Get it. Yeah, listen to this on Spotify and all the fun stuff, and we will see you there. I think. Did you say it? You said it, right?
Do the damn thing.
He said it.